A middle-aged man at my gym was banned permanently yesterday after I reported him for physically grabbing my arms during my workout and forcing me back onto the exercise machine. His membership termination made the front page of the local news this morning. The gym manager walked me through the entire incident, took detailed notes, and assured me they take physical contact violations seriously. But that was not the first time I had been harassed at this gym. That was not even the most disturbing thing that happened to me in that building. 3 months earlier, a different man had pressed his face 3 inches from mine while I was doing bicep curls with my eyes closed. Startling me so badly, I dropped the weights and started shaking. The difference between these two incidents reveals everything wrong with how we handle predatory behavior in public spaces. The first man, who invaded my personal space and made inappropriate comments, never faced consequences because I did not report him. The second man, who physically grabbed my body without consent, was banned immediately because I had learned my lesson about staying silent. The gym has become a sanctuary for me again, but only because I finally understood that my discomfort was not something to manage quietly. My boundaries were not suggestions to be negotiated. And men who feel entitled to my attention, my space, and my body are not entitled to my politeness in return. The most powerful moment came when another man witnessed the grabbing incident and approached me afterward. What's he was probably. Instead of confronting the predator who had just assaulted me, he chose to comfort me with kind words. His response was well-intentioned, but it highlighted a crucial question that every man should ask himself. When given the choice between confronting bad behavior and comforting its victim, why is comfort always easier than intervention? Some women spend their entire lives learning to be polite to men who make them uncomfortable. I spent 1 morning learning that politeness is not owed to predators, and that lesson changed everything. The security footage confirmed every detail of what happened. The gym manager showed me the video of baseball cap guy grabbing my arms and forcing them back onto the machine handles. Watching it happen from an outside perspective made me realize how much worse the violation looked than it had felt in the moment. My relationship with the gym has always been complicated by the fact that I prefer to work out. Completely stoned and utterly focused. This is not just about efficiency, though that is part of it. When I am high, I enter a zone of complete physical and mental absorption, where my entire world narrows down to the specific movement I am performing. It is meditative, therapeutic, and absolutely essential to my mental health routine. This means I do not talk to anyone beyond basic gym etiquette. I say hi and bye to the staff, ask politely if someone is using equipment, thank people when they are finished with machines. But I do not make friends, I do not engage in conversations, and I definitely do not welcome interruptions during my workout flow. My headphones are always in. My eye contact is minimal and purposeful. My body language screams, "Leave me alone." This is not antisocial behavior, it is boundary setting. I have created a clear system for maintaining the mental space I need to get the most out of my exercise routine. For months, this system worked perfectly. I would arrive, work out in my cannabis-enhanced bubble, and leave feeling physically exhausted and mentally refreshed. The gym became my sanctuary, the one place where I could disconnect from social obligations and focus entirely on my own body and goals. But then the food cart incident happened, and everything changed. I had just finished an intense leg workout and was walking to the taco cart outside my gym when a man in his 40s intercepted me. He claimed he recognized me from the gym, though I had never noticed him before. Despite my headphones being out and my obvious rush to get food and leave, he insisted on walking with me and making conversation. The conversation itself was harmless enough. Small talk about the gym, comments about the food cart, casual observations about the neighborhood. But the energy underneath it was wrong. He was positioning himself as someone who had the right to my attention simply because we shared a gym membership. He was treating my temporary availability as an invitation for ongoing social interaction. I made polite conversation because that is what women are trained to do when men demand our attention. I smiled and nodded, and tried to extract myself as quickly as possible without being rude. I left that interaction feeling vaguely uncomfortable, but unable to articulate exactly why. That discomfort should have been my warning signal. 2 days later, he approached me again while I was foam rolling after my workout. My headphones were in, my eyes were focused on my recovery routine, and my body language could not have been clearer about my desire to be left alone. But he walked directly over to me, squatted down beside me, and tried to initiate a conversation. I gave him a brief acknowledgement to be polite, but I did not remove my headphones, and I did not encourage further interaction. I thought the message was clear. I am busy, I am focused, I am not available for socializing right now. But entitled men do not interpret boundary signals the same way women send them. 3 days later, he tried again. This time, I was in the middle of leg lifts, clearly focused on my exercise, obviously in the zone that I work so hard to maintain. And this man walked over and tried to give me a fist bump. A fist bump, a knee. While I was exercising, while my headphones were in, while my attention was completely focused on my workout. That was when I realized this was not going to stop, unless I made it stop. This man had interpreted my politeness as encourage. My basic human decency as romantic interest. My presence in a shared space as availability for his social needs. The final straw came during leg lifts, when he approached me yet again for unwanted interaction. That was when I took out my headphone and delivered the boundary that should have been respected from day one. Look, man, I do not want to do this. I am here to work out. I am not here to make friends. I do not want to talk to you, okay? His response revealed everything about his entitlement. I was just saying hi. Yeah, I get it. Please do not. The interaction ended there, but the real education was just beginning. Because 3 months later, I would learn the difference between a man who does not respect boundaries and a man who does not believe in them at all. But first, I had to learn that my instincts about uncomfortable male attention were accurate and worth trusting, even when the men involved seemed harmless on the surface. The second incident happened on a Tuesday morning, when the gym was relatively empty, and I was deep into my isolation bicep curls. This exercise requires complete focus and control, slow, deliberate movements that demand both physical precision and mental concentration. I always close my eyes during the most challenging part of each rep, using the sensory deprivation to maintain perfect form while pushing my muscles to failure. I was in the middle of my second to last set, slowing the movement to maximize the burn, completely absorbed in the controlled torture of effective strength training. My eyes were closed, my breathing was controlled, my entire universe had narrowed down to the specific sensation of muscle fibers tearing and rebuilding under carefully applied stress. When I opened my eyes, a stranger's face was 3 inches from mine. The shock was immediate and overwhelming. My body reacted before my brain could process what was happening. I dropped the weight with a crash that echoed through the gym. My heart rate spiked too. Panic levels and adrenaline flooded my system like I was under physical attack. Because, in a way, I was. This plump, middle-aged man in a baseball cap had deliberately invaded my personal space while I was in a vulnerable position, using my closed eyes and focused state as an opportunity to get closer than any stranger has a right to get. The violation was instant and profound. I managed to say, still in shock from the sudden appearance of his face so close to mine. Instead of apologizing for startling me, instead of acknowledging that he had crossed a massive boundary, this man did something that revealed the true depth of his entitlement and disrespect. He grabbed my arms and forced them back onto the machine's handles. One more, he commanded, as if he had the authority to direct my workout, as if my body was his to manipulate, as if my consent was irrelevant to his desires. The physical contact was the final violation that transformed shock into rage. I pulled away from his grip and snapped, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" His face fell into an expression of wounded innocence, the practiced look of a man who had been called out for behavior he knew was wrong, but thought he could get away with. "I was just admiring your work," he mumbled, as if objectifying my exercise routine was some kind of compliment I should appreciate. "I am in the middle of a fucking set," I replied, my voice carrying all the anger and violation I felt in that moment. But, instead of apologizing or backing down, he doubled down on his entitlement. He got defensive, claiming he wanted to use the machine, trying to reframe his boundary violation as a legitimate gym interaction. "You can use it when I am not in the middle of a set," I told him, making it clear that his desires did not override my right to complete my workout without harassment. He rolled his eyes and walked away, dismissing my anger as if I was being unreasonable for objecting to being physically grabbed by a straw. Ninja. In his mind, my reaction was the problem, not his behavior. I was left shaking, not just from the physical violation, but from the realization that this man felt completely entitled to my space, my attention, and my body. He had calculated that he could get away with this behavior because most women are socialized to tolerate inappropriate male attention rather than make a scene. But as I started to put my headphone back in, something beautiful happened that restored some of my faith in allyship. Another man approached and waved to get my attention. I took my headphone back out, expecting another unwanted interaction. But instead, he said something that validated my entire experience. "You really should not have to put up with that." It was a simple statement, but it carried profound meaning. Here was a man who had witnessed the entire incident, who recognized it as inappropriate behavior, who understood that I had been violated and wanted me to know that he saw it and disapproved. Of it, I smiled and thanked him, genuinely grateful for his acknowledgement of what had just happened. He walked away without trying to extend the interaction, without using my vulnerability as an opportunity for his own social agenda. It was exactly the kind of supportive male intervention that women desperately need more of in public spaces. But as I reflected on the incident later, I realized there was something troubling about the timing of his support. This man had witnessed the entire grabbing incident. He had seen a stranger violate my personal space and physically manipulate my body without consent. He had watched me react with shock and anger to clear predatory behavior. So why did he approach me to offer comfort instead of approaching the predator to offer correction? Why is it easier for men to empathize with women after they have been violated than it is to intervene while the violation is happening? Why do so many men choose verbal comfort over direct confrontation when they witness predatory behavior? I appreciated his kindness, but I could not stop thinking about how much more powerful it would have been if he had addressed the perpetrator instead of the victim. If he had said to baseball cap guy, "That was completely inappropriate and you need to leave her alone," instead of saying to me, "You should not have to put up with that." The difference matters because it is the difference between treating women's safety as women's responsibility and treating predatory behavior as men's responsibility to address. When good men remain silent during incidents of harassment and then offer comfort afterward, they are essentially putting the burden of addressing bad male behavior on the women who are already bearing the burden of experiencing it. This realization led me to make a decision that changed how I handle workplace harassment, gym violations, and public space predators. I was going to start reporting incidents instead of just managing them. The next morning, I walked into the gym and asked to speak with the manager. I described the entire incident in detail: the personal space violation, the physical grabbing, the defensive response when confronted, the eye-rolling dismissal of my boundaries. The gym manager took the report seriously, asked detailed questions about the incident, took notes about the man's physical description and approximate age, and assured me that they would review security footage and take appropriate action. They also asked if I had experienced any other incidents at the gym, which gave me the opportunity to report the first man who had been persistently approaching me, despite my clear disinterest. Within a week, I received a call from the gym manager informing me that Baseball Cap Guy had been banned permanently from the facility. They had identified him from security footage, confirmed the incident through witness statements, and determined that physical contact with other members without consent was grounds for immediate termination of membership. The first man, the persistent approacher, received a formal warning about respecting other members' boundaries and was informed that further complaints would result in his membership being revoked. But the most satisfying part of this resolution was learning that my report had encouraged other women to come forward with their own experiences of harassment at the gym. Apparently, Baseball Cap Guy had a history of inappropriate behavior with female members, but I was the first person to officially report him. My willingness to make his behavior visible had created space for other women to make their experiences visible too. That was when I realized that staying silent about harassment is not just harmful to the individual woman who experiences it. It is harmful to all the women who will experience it after her if the predator faces no consequences for his action. The security footage was damning. The gym manager showed me the video of the incident, and watching it from an outside perspective made me realize how much worse the violation looked than it had felt in the moment. You could see Baseball Cap Guy deliberately positioning himself close to me while my eyes were closed. You could see him grab my arms and force them back onto the machine. You could see my shock and his dismissive response. The visual evidence removed any possibility of ambiguity about what had happened. This was not a misunderstanding or an accident. This was deliberate, bound-up violation by a man who felt entitled to touch my body without permission. The aftermath of reporting Baseball Cap Guy has been transformative, not just for my gym experience but for my entire approach to handling unwanted male attention in public spaces. The gym has become a sanctuary again, but now it is a sanctuary protected by institutional support rather than just my own boundary-setting efforts. I have received messages from other women at the gym thanking me for reporting the incident, sharing their own stories of uncomfortable interactions they had experienced, but never reported. Several of them told me they had been considering switching gyms because of persistent harassment, but my successful resolution gave them hope that the management would take their concerns seriously too. The ripple effects have extended beyond just the gym environment. I've become much more proactive about reporting inappropriate behavior in all areas of my life: workplace harassment, street harassment, online harassment. The lesson I learned from the Baseball Cap Guy incident is that predatory behavior thrives in environments where it goes unreported and unchallenged. But the most important conversation this incident has sparked is about male allyship and bystander intervention. The man who approached me after the grabbing incident meant well, but his choice to comfort the victim rather than confront the perpetrator highlights a pattern that needs to change. I've started asking the men in my life, when you witness harassment, who do you approach? Do you offer support to the woman who was violated, or do you challenge the man who did the violating? Do you treat women's safety as something to be managed after the fact, or as something to be protected in the moment? The responses to these questions have been revealing. Many men admit they have never considered the option of directly confronting predatory behavior when they witness it. They have been socialized to view harassment as a women's issue to be handled by women, rather than a men's issue that needs to be addressed by men. But some men have started changing their approach after hearing about my experience. I have received messages from male gym members who said they have begun calling out inappropriate behavior when they see it, rather than waiting to offer comfort to victims afterward. One man told me he witnessed another member making persistent unwanted advances on a woman who was clearly trying to work out alone. Nay, and instead of approaching her afterward to sympathize, he approached the harasser and told him to leave her alone. The harassment stopped immediately, and the woman was able to complete her workout in peace. That is the kind of intervention that actually prevents harassment, rather than just acknowledging it after it happens. The broader conversation this incident has generated is about the difference between intent and impact when it comes to male behavior in female-dominated or mixed gender spaces. Baseball Cap Guy probably did not intend to assault me when he grabbed my arms. He likely thought he was being helpful or motivational, but his intent does not diminish the impact of his actions on my sense of safety and bodily autonomy. Similarly, the man who offered me comfort after the incident probably intended to be supportive and kind, but the impact of his choice to comfort, rather than confront, was to maintain the status quo, where women manage the emotional aftermath of harassment, while men avoid the social discomfort of challenging other men's behavior. I have also learned important lessons about the difference between politeness and safety. For years, I prioritized being polite to men who made me uncomfortable, because I was taught that women's comfort is less important than men's feelings. I would smile and make small talk with persistent approachers because rejecting their attention felt rude. But politeness to predators is often perceived as encouragement by predators. The men who refuse to respect subtle boundary signals are not going to be deterred by continued politeness. They are going to be encouraged by it. Learning to be direct about my boundaries, even when it feels rude, has been one of the most powerful tools for maintaining my safety in public spaces. I do not want to talk to you feels harsh when you are saying it, but it is infinitely more effective than smiling and nodding while hoping unwanted attention will go away on its own. The most frequent question I get about this story is whether I would have reacted differently if the men involved had been more attractive or closer to my age. The answer is absolutely not, and that question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about what harassment actually is. Harassment is not about attraction or romantic interest. It is about entitlement and power. It is about men who believe their desires for attention, conversation, or physical contact override women's clearly expressed preferences for privacy and space. An attractive man who ignores my boundaries is just as problematic as an unattractive man who ignores my boundaries. A young man who physically grabs me without consent is just as threatening as an older man who physically grabs me without consent. The issue is not the specific characteristics of the harasser. It is the harassment itself. I have also been asked whether my approach to gym boundaries might discourage friendly social interaction or create an unwelcoming environment. For people who genuinely just want to be nice. My response is that truly friendly, genuinely nice people respect clear boundary signals and do not persist when their attention is unwelcome. If someone approaches me at the gym and I give them brief, polite responses while clearly focusing on my workout, a genuinely nice person will take the hint and leave me alone. They will not interpret my politeness as encouragement for further interaction. If someone tries to give me a fist bump while I am exercising with headphones in, and I acknowledge them briefly, but do not reciprocate the gesture, a genuinely friendly person will understand that I am not interested in socializing and will respect that preference. The men who persist despite clear disinterest signals are not being friendly. They are being entitled. And entitled behavior deserves direct rejection, not continued politeness. The gym has become my sanctuary again, but now it is a sanctuary protected by community standards rather than just individual boundary setting. That is the kind of environment where everyone can focus on their goals without worrying about managing unwanted attention from entitled strangers. And that is worth fighting for, even when it makes you the difficult woman who will not just smile and tolerate inappropriate behavior, especially when it makes you that woman. The most unexpected outcome of this entire experience has been how it changed my relationship with my own instincts. For years I had been taught to second-guess my discomfort around men, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to assume good intentions even when their behavior made me uncomfortable. But both of these gym incidents taught me that my instincts about predatory behavior are accurate and worth trusting. The man who approached me at the food cart felt wrong from the beginning, even though his conversation was superficially harmless. My gut was telling me something my brain had not yet processed. This man did not respect boundaries. Baseball cap guy's behavior escalated from the personal space violation to physical contact, exactly as my instincts had predicted it would. Men who do not respect verbal boundaries rarely respect physical boundaries either. Learning to trust my initial discomfort instead of talking myself out of it has been one of the most valuable safety skills I have developed. That feeling of something is wrong here is information worth paying attention to, even when you cannot immediately articulate what the problem is. The gym manager told me something interesting when I went back to thank her for handling the situation so professionally. She said that women often apologize when reporting harassment, as if they are inconveniencing the gym by bringing attention to problematic behavior. But men who harass gym members are the ones creating inconvenience and liability for the business. Women who report harassment are helping the gym maintain a safe environment for all members. There is no reason to apologize for protecting yourself and other potential victims. This perspective shift has been liberating. I am not causing problems by reporting harassment. I am solving problems by making inappropriate behavior visible to people who have the authority to address it. The security footage also revealed something I had not noticed in the moment. Several other gym members witnessed the baseball cap guy incident, but none of them intervened. They saw a man grab a woman's arms without her consent, heard her angry response, and watched him dismiss her boundaries with eye-rolling contempt. But they all looked away and continued their workouts as if nothing had happened. This bystander behavior is part of what allows harassment to continue unchecked in public spaces. When inappropriate behavior is witnessed but not challenged, predators learn that their actions will be tolerated by the community. The gym has since implemented new policies about member behavior and staff training on recognizing and addressing harassment. They also posted signs reminding members that unwanted physical contact and persistent unwanted attention are grounds for membership termination. These changes would not have happened if I had just managed my discomfort quietly instead of reporting the violations. Sometimes making noise about inappropriate behavior is the only way to create systematic change that protects other potential victims. The local news coverage of baseball cap guy's ban was brief but significant. The article mentioned that the gym had implemented a zero-tolerance policy for harassment after a member was banned for unwanted physical contact. Seeing the story in print made me realize that my individual experience had become part of a larger conversation about safety in fitness environment. I hope that other women who read that article will feel more confident about reporting harassment at their own gyms. I hope that men who read it will think twice before engaging and be happy. Or that makes female gym members uncomfortable. Most importantly, I hope that gym owners and managers will understand that protecting members from harassment is not just the right thing to do. It is good business practice that creates safer, more welcoming environments for everyone. Baseball cap guy learned that his behavior has consequences. The gym learned that their members expect protection from harassment. Other potential predators learned that inappropriate behavior will be documented, audited, and punished. And I learned that my boundaries matter enough to fight for, even when fighting feels uncomfortable or confrontational. The gym is my sanctuary again, but now it is a sanctuary where I know that inappropriate behavior will be taken seriously by management, and that other members understand the importance of respecting personal space and consent. That is the kind of environment where everyone can focus on their fitness goals without worrying about managing unwanted attention, are violations of their personal boundaries. Sometimes the most important battles are the ones that seem small to outside observers, but feel enormous to the person experiencing the violation. Sometimes standing up for yourself requires disappointing people who expected you to tolerate inappropriate behavior quietly. Sometimes protecting your own safety means being willing to be labeled as difficult, dramatic, or oversensitive by people who prioritize social comfort over personal boundaries. But the alternative is accepting a world where predatory behavior goes unchallenged, where women manage harassment as a normal part of existing in public spaces, where entitled men face no consequences for violating other people's boundaries. I prefer being the difficult woman who reports harassment to being the quiet woman who enables it through silence. My boundaries are not suggestions. My comfort matters. My consent is required for any physical contact, regardless of how harmless or helpful the contact might seem to the person initiating it. These are not controversial statements, but they apparently needed to be defended in a gym setting where some men felt entitled to touch, approach, and demand attention from women who had clearly indicated they wanted to be left alone. The most satisfying part of this entire experience has been the knowledge that baseball cap guy will never be able to harass another woman at that gym. His behavior has been permanently documented, his membership has been terminated, and his actions have contributed to policy changes that will protect other women from similar violations. That is what accountability looks like. That is what happens when inappropriate behavior is reported instead of tolerated. That is why speaking up about harassment matters, even when it feels easier to just manage the discomfort quietly. Your boundaries matter. Your comfort matters. Your safety matters. And sometimes the only way to protect those things is to be willing to make other people uncomfortable by refusing to tolerate behavior that makes you uncomfortable.